He doesn't realize it, but every time he watches you, listens to your silence or feels your absence, he's learning. Not consciously, not logically, but through something deeper, something Bandura described as observational learning, something Jung called projection, something your feminine essence already knows. You are the mirror. Today, we'll explore the 7 things a man secretly mirrors from you without ever realizing it, and how your behavior shapes not just his attraction, but his identity. The first thing he mirrors is your emotional state. Not your words, not your logic, but your energy in crisis. When she meets chaos with stillness, he unconsciously absorbs the possibility that not every fire needs to be fought. Bandura explained that behavior is learned through observation, especially when outcomes are tied to perceived success. If your stillness results in clarity, he internalizes it as strength. This is why anxious women often attract chaotic men. They model dysregulation, and he responds in kind. But the woman who embodies emotional poise teaches him that control is not force, it's sovereignty. Next, he mirrors your response to his distance. When he pulls away, he's watching. The insecure feminine chases, the wounded feminine begs, but the empowered feminine breathes. Jung would say this moment reveals the anima projection, his unconscious feminine ideal. If she panics, he devalues. But if she pauses, waits, and returns to herself, he begins to mirror her detachment as self-respect. In the silence, he learns that her world doesn't collapse in his absence, and that's when his begins to shake. He mirrors your relationship with the masculine. A man unconsciously mirrors how a woman treats the masculine within herself. If she resents structure, fears boundaries, or mocks ambition, he senses dissonance. But the woman who honors masculine presence, her own and others, models balance. She doesn't surrender to control, but she also doesn't reject direction. Bandura's theory of modeling explains that behavior must be admired to be adopted. A woman who respects herself, her father, her goals, teaches a man how to respect her leadership without being emasculated. He mirrors your self-worth during conflict. When he raises his voice and you lower your tone, when he tests your limits and you calmly walk away, when he disappears and you rise without vengeance. He mirrors it, slowly, silently. This is not just behavior, it's soul imprinting. Jung called it shadow confrontation, when one person's clarity exposes another's chaos. He may not know why you affect him this deeply, but his nervous system remembers, and so he begins to adjust, not out of fear, but out of awe. He mirrors your relationship with solitude. The feminine who fears being alone invites dependency, but the feminine who thrives in solitude models individuation, a Jungian ideal. Bandura noted that observers are more likely to imitate individuals they perceive as competent and fulfilled. A woman who nourishes herself outside of romantic validation shows him that intimacy is not her oxygen. That frightens some men. But the one worth keeping, he'll mirror it, slowly learning how to love her without needing to possess her. He mirrors your boundaries without explanation. He doesn't just mirror your yes, he deeply mirrors your no. Not the no with guilt, not the no with a paragraph, but the sovereign no, without defense or apology. Bandura showed that modeling is most effective when reinforced by perceived confidence. And Jung would argue that boundaries are where ego meets shadow. The woman who draws clean lines without resentment shows a man how to respect what he can't control. And that's where desire is born. Finally, he mirrors your relationship with your past. He notices how you speak of the ex who betrayed you. He watches how you carry your pain, whether as a story of survival or a badge of bitterness. The woman who integrates her past instead of performing it models wholeness. He mirrors that subtly. Her wounds aren't traps. their teachings. Bandura believed that belief in one's own self-efficacy influenced resilience. The woman who owns her past, without shame or revenge, models strength he cannot forget. A man may never say it aloud. He may not even know he's doing it. But in every interaction, every conflict, every goodbye, he is watching you, absorbing, mirroring, learning. Bandura gave us the science. Jung gave us the soul. But you give the experience. You don't have to perform to earn love. You only have to embody it. To show, not tell. Because the most powerful lesson you'll ever teach a man is how to treat you by how you treat yourself. If this spoke to your spirit, subscribe and let your presence continue the teaching. Some women don't chase, and yet they're never forgotten. They are not loud, not dramatic, not performative. They disappear without slamming the door. And somehow, it's their absence that echoes the loudest in a man's mind. He doesn't understand it, not at first. To him, she was calm, maybe too calm, graceful, always slightly out of reach. When she pulled back, she didn't warn him. She didn't explain. She just withdrew, slowly, silently. And that silence haunts him like a mirror he can't stop looking into. Albert Bandura would call this vicarious conditioning, the idea that we don't need direct consequences to be changed. We observe, we remember, we internalize. And in the realm of male desire, the woman who detaches with dignity becomes a psychological trigger he can't unsee. She becomes his mirror, but not the kind that flatters. The kind that reflects everything he ran from, his impulsive ego, his fractured masculinity, the boy inside who still seeks permission to be whole. Jung would say she activated his anima, the inner feminine force he projected onto her body. Not the real woman, but the woman he hoped she'd be. And when she left, she took the illusion with her. All that was left was himself. Raw, unformed, confronted. He begins to spiral, not because she punished him, but because she didn't. Not because she fought, but because she floated. She didn't give him closure, she became it. She didn't scream, she became silence. And in that stillness he watches, again and again, the replay of her detachment. The way she reclaimed her energy. The way she looked at him like a chapter already closed. The man's mind, once comforted by her presence, is now caught in a loop. Every time she smiles at someone else, every time she speaks with calm authority, every time she posts a picture without a caption, his nervous system jolts. That's not just curiosity, that's obsession born from absence. Bandura's social learning theory shows us behavior that evokes strong emotion becomes internalized faster, and her absence, her pullback, her radiant indifference, they burn deeper than any performance of love ever could. She didn't play games, she played truth. Because this woman wasn't detaching to manipulate. She detached because she saw through him, through the inconsistency, through the charm, through the boy disguised as a man, and instead of fixing him, she fixed her gaze on something higher, herself. This is the woman who once opened herself like a field and closed like a cathedral. A woman who worked through her trauma, who sat in the pain of her childhood wounds and didn't project them onto him. A woman who recognized her anxious attachment and chose stillness over seeking. She no longer over-explains. She no longer rushes to be understood. She simply is. Her power is not in what she says, but in what she no longer needs to say. She no longer begs, she embodies. And the more he sees her live without his validation, the more he craves to be part of her world again. But she's not waiting at the door. She became the door. Jung wrote of individuation, the path of becoming whole. And this woman, in her graceful distance, models individuation itself. She no longer reflects his confusion. She reflects her own clarity. That's what magnetizes him. Not her softness, not her smile, but her self-containment. He is drawn not to her availability, but to the peace she built in his absence. And this peace, it doesn't invite chaos anymore. It recognizes it, respects it, but doesn't entertain it. So he studies her, watches her, mimics her, tries to recreate what she never gave him: emotional security. But it's too late. Because the woman who walks away in silence isn't weak, she simply sees more.